When consistent and well-structured, one-on-ones in your creative team can transform transactional management into the true creative leadership, creating the conditions where extraordinary work becomes possible. Let's get into it.
Equipping creative businesses to unleash their best work.
Welcome back to the Chief Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Pead, founder and owner of Chief Creative Partners, where you get to create because we operate. This podcast is for all creative business owners and entrepreneurs who are turning their art and their creativity from a passion into more of a business or have already established that business. What we do at Chief Creative Partners is we come alongside you and make sure that we focus on the operational side of things so that you can stay focused on the creative. So what we've been doing here in this podcast over the last several episodes is I've been writing my next book, live in real time with you on this podcast every single week. And the book is going to be called Creative Work, 10 Systems That Every Creative Business Needs. And so I've been walking through these different sections of the book. In the first section, we called Personal Survival. We talked about my do versus do framework. We talked about the priority method and the future you note-taking method. Then we moved into part 2, which is more about the client experience, right? Turning that chaotic delivery into a predictable professional system that you can replicate over and over again, right? We talked about client communication, specifically the pizza delivery system. We talked about project kickoffs, how that's supposed to look. And last time we talked about client onboarding. Now we're entering into part 3, which is the team and scale portion of the book, right? We talked about personal survival. We talked about the business. And now we're talking more about the team and how to scale the business. In this section, we're going to cover one-on-one meetings. We're going to cover capacity management. We're going to cover process documentation. We're going to cover delegation, and we're going to cover effective meetings. So today, we're going to talk about one-on-ones and how to have effective and transformative one-on-ones with your team. Because as you grow your creative business, what you're quickly going to realize is that you need a team around you to help pull everything off. If you truly want to scale to a sustainable model, everything can't flow to you and through you. You have to build a team around you. And part of that, what comes with that, right, is the management of that team. And so what we want to talk about here in some of these first, really next several episodes and next several chapters of the book is we want to talk about how do we build a sustainable creative business that has equipped leaders around us with systems that are required to delegate effectively when we need to, protect our team capacity, drive clarity across the organization. And I believe that starts with intentionality, right? My favorite word, the intentionality of an effective and transformative regular one-on-one meeting cadence with anyone a part of your team. So I know that many of you may have had some great experiences, but probably a lot of you have also had some terrible experiences in one-on-ones before, whether it was ones that you were leading or ones that you were led through. And they were a complete waste of your time and oftentimes left you feeling more defeated, not empowered. And so what I want to walk through first is why one-on-ones matter. What is the purpose and the benefits of one-on-ones with our teams and our creative businesses? First thing, one-on-ones, when done right, they build genuine trust and psychological safety, which is essential for creative risk-taking, right? If you don't feel safe, right? If you don't feel genuine trust from outside of you, right? Then it's hard for you to create. And if we want to have a thriving creative business, we need to make sure that we're building a business full of trust and psychological safety so that we can take creative risk. We don't want our hand slapped every time we try to get creative. That's the opposite of a creative business, right? Another purpose and benefit is to detect and address any burnout that's coming before it starts to impact work quality. See, a lot of business owners are reactive, but good, effective one-on-one meeting strategy is all about being proactive, right? We want to be able to see that burnout before it actually happens so that we can shift, pivot, give breaks, give inspiration, coach, build up, whatever we need to do, right? Another purpose of a one-on-one is to uncover brilliant ideas that might not ever surface in a group setting, right? Some people aren't comfortable sharing their ideas in a group setting. And for whatever reason, that's fine. But what we need to understand is that not everybody is the same. And so there are some people on our team that are going to go, yeah, I'm comfortable sharing an idea in a one-on-one setting, but I'm not comfortable sharing it with the group for a variety of reasons. And so we want to create a space where they can share those ideas with us, and a one-on-one is a great place to do that. One-on-ones are also beneficial to align the person's growth with the organizational vision, right? So where is this team member growing, and how does it align with the vision of our creative business? How can we continue to mold those things and bring the person's growth into the trajectory of our creative business's growth? And that probably the biggest benefit and purpose of a one-on-one is to provide some personal mentorship or coaching, right? That transforms your talent into true leadership so that they can replicate and replicate and replicate, right? It's the good kind of pyramid scheme that we want to be able to have in our creative businesses. So when consistent and well structured, one-on-ones transform transactional management into true creative leadership, creating the conditions where extraordinary work becomes possible. All right, so let's talk about who needs to be part of the one-on-ones, right? Obviously, it's pretty clear that a one-on-one is one person and one person, right? Creative one-on-ones work best though with a clear understanding of who should participate. So who is on the other side of the one-on-one? Obviously, part of it is you or a leader in your organization. On the other side of it, some positions that we should consider having one-on-ones with: the direct creative report. So who reports to you directly, they need a regular one-on-one time with you regardless of their seniority. If they directly report to you, then they should have a regular one-on-one time with you. We'll talk about how often here in a little bit. I also think it's important that you have one-on-ones with other department leaders. So maybe in your creative business, there are multiple departments, right? I think it's important that we are kind of leading horizontally, right? Not just vertically, up and down, right? But we're leading horizontally to be able to look across and go, hey, I'm the department lead in for this department. There's two other department leads. I think it's important that we as department leads are getting together one-on-one as much as possible to strategize and to make sure that we're collaborating and we're growing this thing together in the right direction and we're not pulling ourselves in opposite directions. Another good person to have a one-on-one with is promising talent, right? Maybe you have junior creatives in your scope, in your world, right, that have high potential that could benefit enormously from some dedicated mentorship and leadership attention. That's a great opportunity to have a one-on-one. And then maybe if you're not the actual like business owner or straight up leader, maybe, right, you need to start requesting one-on-ones with your leaders and start modeling the behavior so that you can ensure your own growth and the business's growth. Obviously, it's important to remember that one-on-ones are between two people. Adding a third person fundamentally changes the dynamic and defeats the purpose of creating a psychologically safe space for open conversation. Don't make it a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1. Don't make it a 1-on-2, right? Because again, we want to create the safe space for people to be able to share things that they might not be able to share in a group setting. All right, let's talk about what specific outcomes we're going for here in our one-on-ones. So effective one-on-ones in our creative teams should accomplish some specific goals. Number one, they should accomplish alignment, right? We want to ensure that the creative work meets strategic objectives while still fulfilling some personal growth. We always want to make sure personal growth is there and fulfilling that, but we also need to make sure it's meeting the strategic objectives that we set out to for each individual project or client. One-on-one should also be a place for unblocking, right? Let's identify and remove any obstacles before they affect deadlines or creative quality. This is the proactive, this is the intentionality that I was talking about earlier. Another specific outcome in a one-on-one is development, right? Let's use this time to advance skills that may not be exercised in a current work project. Hey, we see that you're lacking in this one skill. We can see a need coming up for our business to fulfill this skill. So let's use this one-on-one time to develop a skill that we know we're going to need down the road. Probably one of the greatest outcomes to target in a one-on-one is relationship building, right? This is an opportunity for you to strengthen the trust between you and your team member or you and your leader that enables that creative risk taking, right? We know that playing it safe doesn't always lead to the best creativity in the long run, right? We may be able to get by a little bit, but if we want to elevate, if we want to take it to the next level, we want to take our creativity and our business to the next level, we have to create an environment that is safe for risk taking, right? And so in order to do that, right, they need to feel like the bonds and the trust that they've made with each other and their leaders is one that can take those risks without being shamed or embarrassed. And that comes through building relationships, and we build relationships intentionally and purposefully in our one-on-ones. Another outcome in the one-on-one should be to inspire your team, right? We want to be able to cross-pollinate ideas outside of the constraints of meetings. We want to be able to come and say, hey, I saw this. I thought this was super inspiring. I would love to share this with you. Maybe it helps you on a project. Maybe it doesn't. But either way, let's share inspiration. Let's be curators of good creativity and good art and the things that move the needle forward. Let's continue to bring those things forward as much as possible. And in our one-on-one meeting is a great time to do that. And like we said earlier with unblocking, right? This is an opportunity in these one-on-ones to detect problems early, right? We want to catch issues that might not surface in group settings, whether it be a personal issue or a professional issue, like a tactical issue, whatever it is. One-on-ones should be a place that you can catch those issues before they surface because we're proactive and intentional. But it's important for us to remember that when we're thinking about specific outcomes of our one-on-one, like what we want to see happen out of these, that each one-on-one should produce at the end of the day, no matter what, it should produce clear action items for both participants. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. And then we're going to document those things and we're going to revisit them over and over again every time that we come together. Anytime that if something's still open, we're going to bring it, because nothing can kill a culture or kill morale or kill creative risk taking more than saying that you're going to do something and then actually not doing it, or asking someone to do something and then not following through. We should always inspect what we expect. All right, let's talk about setting the right rhythm of how often we do these one-on-ones. Here's what I suggest. For direct reports, if they report directly to you, I would suggest a good weekly 30-minute session. I think that's easy. It keeps frequency up without overwhelming your calendars. I think we can all afford that 30 minutes. If it needs to, if you have more people that report to you than your calendar can handle, then I would encourage you to look for who can you delegate some leadership to so that they can lead others. We shouldn't have so many people reporting directly to us that leading them becomes our full-time job, and we have no room for innovation or creativity or sales or business growth, right? It's a major part. People are, the lifeblood of our creative businesses, so we have to make time for them, but we don't want it to overwhelm our calendar either. So a good weekly 30-minute for any direct reports, I think, is good, creates great momentum without overwhelming anyone's calendar. Some of that horizontal leadership that I was talking about earlier, and those horizontal one-on-ones, if you have other departments within your business, I think it's important to meet with them either every other week or monthly, right? Just maintaining connection. When we turn left, how does it affect you? When you turn right, how does it affect us? Those types of conversations. And then for any freelancers or contractors, this is where a lot of us live, right? A lot of us in creative businesses have a ton of freelancers and contractors. If it's for a project only and it's not an ongoing retainer with that contractor or freelancer, I think at the beginning of the project, The middle of the project and the end of those project cycles is where you should be having some quick 30-minute one-on-one check-ins with them. So make sure you're building in that time to pay them and build in that time for yourself as well. When you're bringing on a freelancer or a contractor for a specific project, you want to be able to have those intentional moments of communication, build that into your budget, build that into your calendars, make sure it happens. And so I want to be clear here that the key is, when we're setting the right rhythm for one-on-ones, that the key isn't having some perfect schedule, but it's having reliable consistency, right? Because your team needs to know that these meetings, this sacred time, it's going to happen. It will happen. And it's not the first thing that's sacrificed when deadlines come up, right? If you're constantly canceling a meeting because the week just got away from you, right? Then you need to go back and look at some of the stuff that we talked about earlier in this book, or the do versus do, or the future you method, or the priority stuff, right? Use the focus funnel, those types of things. Those are the things that you're going to need to go back and revisit. It's not getting rid of the one-on-one. It's not getting rid of these things and keeping to delete them or push them that's going to move the needle forward for your business. And your team needs to see that. They need to see that clearly and trust and know that the majority of the time, right? That you're not going to get pushed or canceled on, because it's important that we have these one-on-ones with our team members. So speaking of schedule and timeline, let me give you a little pre-meeting preparation and how we kind of set the stage for success for these one-on-ones. I recommend a good 48 hours, so 2 to 3 days, depending on the calendar, sending the agenda ahead of time with just the 3 to 5 discussion topics or questions to allow for thoughtful preparation. Not everybody is good at answering questions on the fly. They may need some time to think about it. If you're doing a 30-minute one-on-one, you don't have time for them to think about it. You need them to be able to come prepared with answers. And honestly, it's respectful and builds trust if you can let people know what the meeting's going to be about before you get into the meeting. It's just good manners. On that agenda, make sure that you include any standing items, like, hey, we're always going to talk about this, and then any meeting specific topics as well. And these agendas are not just for the leader. These are for both participants, right? When you send them, ask them, hey, what would you like to discuss in our next one-on-one? Invite them to put those things on the agenda. Make it a living document that they have access to as well. And then you both can review it before you walk into the meeting so that you're prepared to have the conversations that you need to have. Here's what I'll say too. Keep it concise. A bulleted list works better than a paragraph of explanation. Your agenda for these one-on-ones should not be longer than a standard page on a standard Google Doc. And like I said, create that shared document so that you can track ongoing conversations, action items, and growth areas. We do this by just having tabs. We have one document for that one person's one-on-one, and we have tabs in that document that we will use a tab for every actual dated meeting that we have, but it's one document. There's no like, where's the document for this week's agenda? It's the same document every time. So create it, share it, make sure they're invited to put their agenda items on it as well. So a sample of what this could look like, right, is here's our topics for discussion. We're going to follow up on previous action items. We're going to check on your progress of a current project or projects. We're going to get your thoughts on improving a specific area or specific process of our business. We're going to get your questions and topics, both of your questions and topics that you want to discuss, right? And then creative inspiration, we'll talk about having that here in a little bit. And then ending with action steps moving forward for both of you. That's what should be documented on every single agenda. Like I said, sending that agenda in advance respects your team members' times, right? It's just good manners. And it allows your introverts and analytical thinkers to prepare thoughtful responses. And it signals that you take these conversations seriously because you have prepared for them. If people think that you are not taking something seriously, then they won't take it seriously, and it'll be a waste of both of your times. All right, I know many of us are digital on our teams these days, so most of us are going to have these one-on-ones probably over a Zoom or a Google Meet or some kind of a chat space like that. But if you're going to have them in person, I want to remind you, let's break free from the norm. If you actually have an office space, maybe get out of the office space a little bit, right? Don't make your one-on-ones feel like just such a regular, conventional, boring meeting. Shake it up a bit. You're a creative business, get creative with it, right? Go to your favorite coffee shop, or the person that you're meeting with, go to their favorite coffee shop, right? Maybe it's a walking meeting. Maybe you have a great neighborhood that in which your business is located in, or that y'all could meet up at. Maybe you work remotely, right? But you still live kind of in the same area, and so you can get together and you can just have a walking meeting. There's nothing wrong with that as well. Go to a gallery or a museum, some kind of a creative space that will inspire you and motivate you, right? Because we're motivated and inspired by our spaces. Or if you can't do any of that, just create like a dedicated corner in your office for that, or in your office space, or somewhere that you have. Just create a dedicated corner for that can be, feel artistic and creative and inspirational. So remember, the less that it feels like a formal meeting, the more genuine the dialogue becomes, right? And so the investment in the right environment is going to pay dividends in the creative energy and authentic communication that you're going for in these transformative one-on-ones. All right, everybody wants to know, how do we do these one-on-ones? What does it actually look like? Let's talk about how. All right, but before we get into the how, I want you to remember a few things, right? Good leaders ask great questions, right? We ask more questions than we make statements. The quality of your one-on-ones is going to depend on less on what you actually say and more on how you less on the actual statements that you make and more on what you ask and how well you'll listen. So let's just spend a moment here talking about mastering the art of questioning. And here's how we do that. First thing we do, ask open-ended questions that can't be answered with yes or no. Ask open-ended questions that can't be answered with yes or no. If all of your questions could be answered with yes or no, guess what? That's a form or an email. That's not a meeting. Next thing, follow the 3-to-1 ratio. Ask at least 3 questions for every 1 statement that you make. Start noticing that pattern. Am I asking more questions than making statements? Because that's what great leaders do. Next, consider personality differences when asking questions, right? In Enneagram 5, like we said, they might need more time to process, while an Enneagram 3 might respond best to like achievement-focused questions, or an Enneagram 7 might respond better to like joy-based questions. Next, phrase questions to invite storytelling. Ask questions like, hey, can you tell me about a time when XYZ? Right? Phrase them to invite storytelling. Open it up even more than just those yes or no questions. And lastly, resist the urge to immediately solve problems. Before you jump in and solve their problems, ask them, hey, what solutions have you considered already? If they say they haven't considered any solutions, that's an opportunity for you to coach. If they say these are the solutions that I've thought of already, then you can give your feedback on those solutions. It's empowering them to make decisions on their own. So let me give you a few quick active listening techniques for leaders, right? First thing, take brief notes during your one-on-ones. That's going to help you demonstrate the value that you have for their input. And I would honestly suggest that you use some type of a recorder and not a pen and paper, because you want to be dialed in, making eye contact. Active listening starts with your eyes. All right. Also, repeat back what you've heard. That helps them understand that you heard what they said and you heard it in the way that they meant to state it. Watch for nonverbal cues, right? Those may contradict verbal responses. We've all seen that before, where we ask someone how they're doing and they say, fine, right? But if they just say fine and they say it with a frown on their face and they say it with a really negative tone, you're not going to believe them because of the tone of voice and actually even more so the nonverbal cues of the frown and the angry face. So we all know what that looks like already. So pay attention and watch for those nonverbal cues. Another technique, eliminate distractions completely, right? No phones, emails, computers. This is why I say it's better to have a recorder and not taking physical notes instead. We eliminate those distractions so that we can all focus on the conversation at hand and listen to what is actually being said. This one's tough for a lot of leaders here. This next one, create deliberate silence after a question. Make it really uncomfortable if you need to. Do not force yourself by answering every question for them. Allow them to have a thoughtful response. And then lastly, validate emotions. Before you move on to any solution, you need to recognize the emotion that's at hand. Hey, that sounds really frustrating, or wow, that actually sounds pretty amazing, right? Whatever it is, acknowledge the emotion before you start to move into your input and your problem solving. You got to remember, the moment that you shift from curiosity to judgment, psychological safety is gone, right? Prioritize understanding over evaluation, especially in your early discussions as you're getting to know each other. So, what does a one on one look like? I always say start with at least a good 3, 5, 7 minutes of a personal check in. Start with the human, not with the work. Here's some key questions you can ask. You can ask, hey, what's giving you energy right now, both inside and outside of work? Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling about your creative capacity today? Hey, what's one thing outside of work that's inspiring you lately? These are great questions to ask in a personal check-in. And this matters because it creates that psychological safety. It sets the tone, right? And acknowledges the whole person and can oftentimes reveal creative influences that inform their work. And you'll get to know kind of the story behind the person, which will allow you to lead them better. So personal check-in has to be first. Then we're going to spend just a few minutes, 7 to 10 minutes or so, on progress reviews, right? We're going to move from personal progress to professional progress, and we're going to start focusing on movement rather than just deliverables. We're going to ask questions like, hey, what progress are you most proud of since we last met? Where do you feel stuck or in need of creative direction? What roadblocks can I help as your leader remove from your current projects? This matters because it keeps accountability front and center while positioning you as the creative enabler rather than just the reviewer. The third part is growth planning, right? This is a dedicated time to development that extends beyond current project needs. And development doesn't need to be hours or a half day training. You can get some good development done in 10 minutes. Ask questions like, hey, what creative skills are you most excited to develop next? How is your current work aligned with where you want to grow? What resources or experiences would help you level up in this specific area? Just growth planning it's growth planning, right? It's not growth execution. We can take a few minutes, find out what growth they need, how we can help grow them, and equip them and unleash them to do some really amazing work, right? So this moment in your one-on-one, having this moment in your one-on-one is going to prevent creative stagnation, right? It's going to demonstrate the investment in their future and the innovation of the company as well. It's going to help you develop a more versatile creative team because you're specifically going, hey, I care about your growth and development here. What do we need to do to support you in that? Next, you want to have just a few minutes at the end of some creative inspiration. End by looking outward and forward. It's going to leave the meeting on a high note, an energizing note, right? So you can talk about, hey, let's share some work that you've both. So some ways to do that are you can both share some work that you found inspiring, right? You can create like a shared inspiration board. We've done this before on Pinterest, and we just call it show and tell, and we have a little show and tell time at the end of our one-on-ones. We can have a little discussion about industry trends or emerging creative techniques that we've been seeing. We can brainstorm some blue sky concepts that are totally unrelated to current deadlines, right? What would be a crazy idea? What if statements, that type of stuff. And what about some recommended books or podcasts or events that might be coming up that will spark a new way of thinking? Ending on this creative inspiration time reinforces that creativity extends beyond the project deliverables because that's what we're focused on, heads down in every single day is deliver on the project, deliver on the project, deliver on the project. This part of the one-on-one reinforces that our creativity, it goes beyond those head down moments and positions us as a team for continuous inspiration as an expected part of the job. We expect creative inspiration in this role. And then lastly, obviously, end on action items. Make sure every single thing is documented that both of you decided that you were going to do and when it's going to be done by, and make sure we're following up on those things the next time that we meet. All right, I want to end this chapter in this podcast episode by just giving a little bit of a warning of some common mistakes that creative leaders make in one-on-ones. Mistake number one, you turn one-on-ones into status updates. People hate meetings that could be a Slack notification or an email, right? A status update can be handled asynchronously. We don't need a one-on-one to get a status update. One-on-ones should focus in on challenges and growth and conversations that benefit from a real-time interaction. Mistake number two, dominating the conversation, right? The best creative leaders should speak for less than 40% of the meeting. It's one of the reasons why I love to use Fathom as my recorder so much when I'm doing a Zoom call. It's because it will tell me a real time in percentage how much am I talking, and I can see it on the screen. And if I start to see it creep up above 40%, I start asking more questions and I back off because I don't need to be dominating the conversation. My primary job in that meeting is to ask thoughtful questions that unlock new thinking, not to dominate the conversation. Mistake number three, inconsistent scheduling. We talked about this earlier, right? Repeated cancellations or rescheduling of our one-on-ones. It's going to send a message. It's going to send a clear message to your team that their development is not a priority, right? So protect these meetings as fiercely as you protect client presentations. Mistake number four that creative leaders make when executing one-on-ones is they focus exclusively on problems, right? No one likes to come to a meeting to hear 30, 60, 90 minutes, whatever it is, of all the problems that are going on with them and what's wrong with them and what's wrong with the organization, right? When every one-on-one becomes problem solving, you can create a negative association mentally with that meeting. So balance addressing those challenges with also celebrating wins and exploring possibilities. One of the reasons why the creative inspiration at the end is so important. The biggest mistake I see leaders make in their one-on-ones is neglecting to follow through. Listen, nothing will damage trust faster than promising resources or feedback or opportunities or tasks, right? Promising that you're going to do those things during a one-on-one and then failing to deliver. So track your commitments religiously. Give yourself a DO date and let the other person know that this is when you're going to DO it. And that way they know it's actually going to be done. All in all, remember that one-on-ones aren't about perfection. They're about creating a consistent space where creativity, trust, and growth can flourish together in your creative business. The most important ingredient is genuine trust, right? And that helps your team members become even better at what they're already doing so well. If you'd like to have a creative one-on-one meeting template or 20 questions for your creative one-on-ones, reach out to me, Dustin at Chief Creative Partners, and I'll be happy to send it your way. Next time on the podcast, we're going to talk about capacity management. It's going to be chapter 8 of the creative workbook, 10 systems that every creative business needs. Get out there, make genuine, true, intentional, authentic connection with your team. Make one-on-ones great again. We'll talk to you next time on the Chief Creative Podcast.